Dear, good morning.
Good morning, Sonia. Can you hear me better now?
Absolutely, a lot better.
Good, lovely, that's good. Look, there's nothing new about dashcam footage being used. It's been used on a widespread basis for many years now. There's obviously an innovative scheme in your particular area. Anything that improves road safety is good. It is policing on the cheap, but the police have no choice because of the cuts that they've faced. It's ironically referred to as extra eyes. I mean, the reality is you very rarely see a marked police vehicle on the road now. So, I think that the very existence of this scheme will have a deterrent effect on motorists because there are private police, if you like, members of the public all over the place, and people will be saying to themselves, I better be careful, I better not conduct that dangerous manoeuvre because I might just get nabbed. And from that perspective, it's a very good thing. And I think if motorists use this wisely, and don't send every bit of bad driving in, because, look, the reality is no one drives perfectly. We all make mistakes. The ordinary, competent, prudent person isn't a perfect person. It's a person who is human, who is fallible. But if it's used to prosecute the most serious type of cases, the most serious type of dangerous driving, then I think it has a real purpose. And because it's right that, occasionally we see someone driving like a total lunatic, and those are the people who really need to be prosecuted. The people who marginally exceed the speed limit, etc., yes, they shouldn't be doing that, but I don't think it's worth the resource. And there is a massive resource involved in people sifting through all this dashcam footage evidence and decide whether or not it's worth prosecuting. And it is interesting to note that Will said the majority of people actually go on courses, and of course those courses cost money. And I think I'm correct in saying that all or a significant part of that money goes back to the police. So you've got the members of the public behind the prosecutions, behind the courses, and the beneficiaries of those courses are to some extent the police.
I'm not too sure about that bit, but well, you say, I know you think it's policing, in your view it's policing on the cheap, but ultimately there's a lot of cars on the road. You can't be everywhere, and it's up to all of us to make society a safe place. We've all got a part to play. If we can help make it safer, then what's wrong in that?
There's nothing wrong in that at all. And as I say, if it makes the road safer, it's good. But, we used to have a massive number of police cars on the road, and that there is a happy medium, and I accept and acknowledge the police have faced cuts, as have all sorts of other industries and businesses. But how often do you see a marked police car on the road? You see traffic officers on the road who have very limited powers. So the deterrent factor, and you know this if you drive, Sonia, you're driving along, you see a police car, automatically you're going to check your speed, am I driving properly? It has that deterrent factor. And I do think the scheme will have that deterrent factor. And from that perspective, it is a good thing. And if it's used wisely and responsible by the public, yes, I'm all in favour of it, because it will mean that people will put themselves in check and drive in a responsible manner. I think the members of the public need to be aware of this, and this hasn't been touched upon. If you submit video evidence, you will be required to make a statement. That was referred to, and of course you may well be required to attend court. You also need to be aware that you need to be driving like a saint yourself, because if you're going to dob other people in it, it's quite possible for your driving to be interrogated by that dashcam footage. And I've been involved in many cases involving this, where we've got the footage, looked at it, and seen the perpetrator is in fact guilty of bad driving themselves, and they've ended up being prosecuted and getting penalty points. So if you're going to involve yourself in this type of scheme, you need to ensure that actually you're not a hypocrite and you are legally compliant, and you're only prosecuting the most serious type of cases.
How many times has that happened then, Nick, where you've had that situation where the person reporting it's ended up getting into trouble as well?
Well, one of the first things the defence law will do is obviously obtain the footage, the full footage. And I would say many times, not hundreds of times, but tens of times, the person who submitted the video evidence has been prosecuted themselves. I mean, I remember one particular case not very long ago. It was in Wales. A gentleman was going through. He was videoed by some motorcyclists. We got the dashcam footage that showed that these motorcyclists, there was a group of them, had been going through Welsh villages at 80 and 90 miles an hour. The case against my client was dropped, and they were all prosecuted for dangerous driving. And that just gives you an illustration. So there can't be any hypocrisy about this. The idea is to make the roads safer, and not. We've got vigilante cyclists at the moment. We don't want vigilante motorists. We want people to be responsible. We all, as you rightly say, have a role to play. It used to be the role of the police. Now it's obviously.
Well, it's always been the role of us to make society safer as a whole, hasn't it?
Not on
really?
The roads. Not on the roads. No, I don't agree with that.
But they can't be everywhere, though, can they? Even with higher numbers, they're still not going to be everywhere. So if you see something bad, if you see fly tipping or whatever it is, you're going to report it, aren't you? That's always the case.
Well, of course, but we're talking about driving here. And before the days of robotical policing, before the days of cameras, we used to rely almost exclusively on the observations of police officers. If they were going to deal with a speeding motorist, it were the observations of a police officer, a trained, experienced police officer. We literally don't have that now. You get very, very few cases that come before the court on the basis of what a police officer has witnessed. It principally is, this is camera evidence, it's robotical policing, and what we're doing now is getting a human involvement, but it's from members of the public and not police. So, look, it is the way it's going. It certainly didn't used to be that way, but hopefully at the end of the day, this evidence is being analysed not by lay staff. It's interesting to note that it was headed up by a retired traffic officer. Does that mean that there are lay staff who are actually looking at this video evidence and then deciding who's going to receive a course and who's going to be prosecuted? Because my impression is this scheme should be dealt with by trained and experienced police officers ultimately, even if they're not obviously the ones. When they review the evidence, it needs to be reviewed by somebody who is very experienced and not somebody who is a member of the public, a civilian member. And unfortunately, many of police jobs now are conducted by members of the public. It's not a police force, it's now a police service, isn't it? And we could have a longer discussion about that.
We absolutely could, Nick. Appreciate your time coming on this morning. Nick Freeman, criminal defence lawyer. Will was listening to that, so I just want to